So you might see that there are lots of videos on the quick tools to help you feel calm or to calm your emotional eating urges. Today I'm going to share why I don't give clients these tools. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. So maybe if you've ever Googled how to stop emotionally eating, you might see some recommendations pop up. I know back in the day when I was learning about emotional eating, I was reading this book and it mentioned, maybe stop, go for a walk, go take a shower, call a friend, maybe drink water, chew some gum, essentially distract yourself from the emotional eating urge that's coming up. But the truth is that those quick tools might help for the moment, but what I found is that those urges keep building. And you might not emotionally eat in that moment, but you might emotionally eat later on in the day, the next day, a few days later. You fought the urge, you used these distraction tools, but it didn't actually shift your pattern. And that's why I don't give my clients these tools. I want them to resolve their emotional eating at the root. I want them to have sustainable change. And I don't want them to think that if they keep using these distraction tools that they're actually going to get resolution. So some of the common quick fixes that I see are to just go for a walk, call a friend, journal it out, maybe drink some water, chew some gum, essentially to just distract yourself. And it really annoys me when I hear this advice because I've seen clients try to do this themselves. Even though I'm teaching them a new way, they fall back into these old sort of quick fixes to sort of stop themselves in the moment. And what essentially happens is that they can't fight the urge. They eventually end up emotionally eating and they think something's wrong with them. Usually, if this is happening to you, you need deeper tools. And sometimes you need to work with someone and have that support longer term to really shift this pattern at its root. So essentially, these quick fixes, they're distracting you. They're pausing sort of the emotional charge that you're having. But eventually, you will lose out. You will eventually give in to these urges later on in the day, the next day. They build up. And you're not going to connect the trigger to the actual emotional eating event. It's going to be spaced out. And I see this with clients because when they're working with me, I'm looking at their patterns with food and I can see sometimes, they emotionally ate on a Tuesday, but if we go back to Sunday night, they were triggered, but they fought the urge and they felt really proud, but they fought the urge with willpower, not actually getting into the root and shifting the pattern. So why don't these quick tools work? They might seem to temporarily work because we're seeing an instant move away from the food. But the thing is that emotional eating is not really about the food. It is a coping mechanism. And when this pattern's triggered, our brain says, oh no, I need to feel okay, I need to soothe, I need to numb, I'm going to jump to food. And it happens so automatically that we just see our behavior around food. We're wanting to eat the food. We have this sudden urge to eat. And we might just notice that urge, but we haven't noticed what actually triggered the pattern. So what we're not really seeing is that some type of stress or overwhelm, unprocessed emotions is being triggered. And our brain is saying, I need to feel okay. I need to soothe myself. I need to calm myself. I need to regulate. And the only way you learned to do this was through food because your parents or caregivers didn't show you how to move through your discomfort, how to process emotions. They probably weren't able to do that themselves. They had their own coping mechanisms. And so now all you see is your out of control behavior with food, but it's really about so much more. And it's not about distracting from these emotions. Emotional eating in and of itself is a distraction from these emotions and these stressors and these traumas, even though you're not seeing it because you're automatically going to the food. And what you're essentially doing is saying, instead of emotionally eating, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to journal. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to X, Y, and Z. And you're just replacing the emotional eating with something else. But all of the things you're replacing it with are not actually hitting the root of the pattern. You're not actually meeting your deeper needs. You're not resolving the root of this. And without true resolution, you're going to keep switching out coping mechanisms, behaviors. I've had clients that, let's say they stop smoking. That was an addictive behavior. Then they start emotionally eating. And so you're just switching out one sort of substance for another without actually getting into the deeper root of the pattern. And we don't want to do that. We want to have true resolution, meet our needs, learn how to give ourselves what we actually needed. So how do we start shifting this? So what I teach to clients is, instead of the quick fixes, we want to get to the root of your emotional eating. And so the way I teach that is in a multi-layered way. And the first step is really about true nourishment. And this is important because a lot of the times our relationship with food, even though emotional eating isn't about the food, we have restrictive patterns around food that physiologically can make us go to food to binge. We restrict ourselves, we don't meet our deeper needs, and so we are using food to soothe ourselves. And so also learning to truly nourish ourselves without restricting ourselves, we're going to start seeing where our emotional eating pattern is popping up, where we're actually emotionally hungry versus truly hungry. I also teach clients to move into body acceptance, because a lot of the times the triggers to emotional eating are around our body. We have shame around our body. We don't like the way we look. We think if we looked a certain way, we would be more acceptable. And the shame spirals us into more emotional eating. Physiologically, also, when we don't honor our body's rhythms, that can shift our hormones and make us want to eat more. Even though it's not true emotional eating, it's still triggering us into this sort of binging behavior with food. And of course, sort of the deeper way that we work with this is when we truly see our emotional eating triggers, we work with the deeper root. We use that as a doorway to get into, where is this trigger coming from? What is the deeper root of this? We do this in a somatic way through somatic meditations, using different psychotherapy tools like inner child and parts work and somatic processing to really get to the root and shift that pattern, so that you're not using food as the band-aid to soothe yourself. You're actually meeting your deeper emotional needs and having aligned action steps on what you need to shift in your life. And so this is what really moves the needle on your emotional eating. You start seeing what you actually need and not trying to, on the surface, switch it out with walking or journaling. We're getting into the root and shifting the pattern. And you're learning how to actually meet your needs in a really powerful way that you weren't taught. And as we do this, as we meet your deeper needs, food cannot fill that hole. You start to dissolve your emotional eating pattern. You start to physiologically feel more ease and peace and confidence in your body and around food as a result. So as I shared earlier in the video, I tried a lot of these tactics. So I had found this book, and it was really the first book that helped me to understand true versus emotional hunger. And in that book, it also suggested for me to go for a walk, to bring down the emotional charge, to do X, Y, and Z, similar things to what I've shared with you today. And I noticed that it didn't shift my emotional eating. And I sort of intuitively realized that I needed to go deeper. And I was reading other books about meditation, and I started to intuitively tie in how I could get into the root without using sort of my mind to try to figure it out, to get to the root in the body. I started to see that connection. And that's what really helped me to move through my emotional eating. I needed some pieces. So sometimes when we're hearing things about emotional eating, certain pieces are correct, but it's not the full picture. And as I started to create my own process around resolving my emotional eating, I started to see my pattern shift, going from maybe every week to every month to, once every 6 months, just the last little pattern resolving itself. And now it's been over 10 years since I've emotionally eaten, and there's no way I could go to food to soothe myself, because I've cleared the pattern at such a deep level, and I've learned how to meet my needs. And it's not to say my life is perfect. That's the beauty of this. Life is always going to happen. We're always going to have emotions and triggers coming up. But when we remove that coping mechanism and start meeting our deeper needs, we can actually move through life with more ease and grace, because we have the tools. We're actually meeting our authentic needs so that we can move forward in a really powerful way, in a really easeful and confident way as well. So yes, those quick tools might help you in the moment. You might feel really empowered. You used your willpower, you fought an urge, but it's not shifting the pattern at a deeper level. And so if you want to resolve your emotional eating at the root, you want to actually see that sustainable change and shift the pattern, then I would love to invite you to grab my free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? Inside this guide, it's going to start showing you the tools and the awareness to start shifting your pattern, how to start discerning true from emotional hunger and catching those triggers. And this is going to be your doorway into having that more powerful shift around your emotional eating. And if you're ready to resolve your emotional eating from the root and you're looking for deeper support, I'd love to invite you to find out more about the Emotional Eating Evolution Program. This is my 12-week container, and inside there is the step-by-step process to resolving your emotional eating, office hours, there are one-to-one sessions, the in-depth tools to actually shift this pattern, so that you can get to the other side with ease and peace and confidence around food and in your body, and you know what works to keep moving forward in that journey. So if you'd like to find out more about the free guide or the program, the links will be below. If you have any questions about what I've shared today, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe. I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.